You are no longer my daughter. The words hit like a hammer in the dead silence of the living room. My father, James Whittaker, stood by the fireplace, his voice slicing through the murmurs and clinks of champagne glasses. His face was red with fury, hand clenched around a tumbler of scotch. I wish I never had you, Emily. You've been nothing but shame to this family. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I stood still, blinking rapidly under the glow of the chandelier. My spine was stiff, but my heart was quietly folding in on itself. Everyone had frozen, my aunts, uncles, cousins, even my mother. But then, slowly, as if they needed permission, the laughter began. First Uncle Rob snorted behind his glass. Then Aunt Lydia gave a theatrical gasp. My cousin Claire raised her phone, whispering something to her sister, both of them giggling as they tapped their screens. My own mother looked away, adjusting the diamond bracelet my father gave her last Christmas, pretending I wasn't even in the room. I didn't cry. I just swallowed and asked calmly, because I didn't take the corporate job? You didn't take the job. You walked away from your future. From our future. You'd rather flip coffee cups in some artsy cafe downtown like a damn dropout than honor your name. Whittakers don't wait tables, Emily. They run empires. But it's my life, I whispered. His laugh came sharp and cold. Not anymore. From today forward, you're not a Whittaker. I opened my mouth, but my voice caught. I could feel the prickle of tears I refused to let fall. This wasn't just about a job. This was about control. About identity. And then a shuffle. From the back corner of the room, where the lights didn't reach as well, came the sound of an old chair creaking and the soft tap of a cane against hardwood. James. All heads turned. My grandfather, William Whittaker Sr., once a towering figure in oil and steel, now just a quiet man in his 90s, rose from his chair. His presence still commanded the room even though he walked slowly, shoulders hunched and face lined with time. He didn't look at anyone but my father. Then you should read this first. From inside his coat, he took out a thick envelope. It was yellowed at the corners. Sealed. Heavy with silence. My father scoffed. Dad, don't start. This is between. Grandpa raised a hand. Shaky, but firm. Read it. Now. No one laughed anymore. He handed the envelope to my father, who looked at it like it was a ticking bomb. With a grunt, he tore it open and pulled out the papers inside. His eyes scanned them, line by line, until the color drained from his face. His hand trembled. The scotch glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the hardwood. What the hell is this?" he whispered. My mother stepped forward, peering over his shoulder. "James?" He said nothing. His lips parted, his jaw slack. Then he looked up at me, and in that look I saw it. Terror. "Tell her," Grandpa said. "Tell me what?" I asked, heart thudding like a war drum. My father swallowed hard. His voice cracked. "You're not who you think you are." The entire room held its breath. 23 years ago. He couldn't finish. Grandpa turned to me, stepping closer. "Emily, what he's trying to say is, you were adopted." The room spun. I blinked. "No." "That's no." "What?" He nodded. "But that's not the important part. What matters is, you were left to us by someone I once trusted more than my own son." My father's mouth opened, but Grandpa's voice thundered over him. "Shut up, James. You kept her all these years because I paid you to. You never loved her. You used her. And now you want to throw her away like trash." Gasps rippled around the room. "I knew this day would come," Grandpa said, turning to the rest of the family. "So, I made sure Emily would never be at the mercy of James Whittaker again." He turned to me and placed something else in my hand. "A key." "What is this?" I asked, still dazed. "A key to your inheritance," he said simply. "And to your real story." My father dropped onto the couch, head in hands, face pale. "You can't do this. I already have." That's when Grandpa raised his voice one last time. "Listen closely, everyone. Emily was never yours to mock. She was always the best of us. And everything I own, every dollar, every acre, every piece of my legacy, is now hers. She is the sole heir of the Whitaker estate. Effective immediately. Dead silence. And then my father began to cry. But I didn't move. I stood still, every breath shaking, every thought screaming, because my life just turned upside down in front of the very people who wanted me gone. But I wasn't going anywhere. Not anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I sat on the edge of my bed, still in the dress I wore to what was supposed to be a family celebration. My heels were kicked off, but my mind had only gotten louder. My grandfather's words echoed over and over again. You were adopted. Everything I own is now yours. I turned the key over in my palm, staring at it like it might explain something. A safety deposit box? A private estate? The key looked too new to be old, too real to be symbolic. And my father's face. I kept replaying it. The moment he realized he no longer had control.
He cried. He cried.
But not for me.
No.
Those were the tears of a man watching his empire slip through his fingers, piece by piece. At 7:03 a.m., my phone rang. It was a private number. I hesitated, then answered. Miss Emily Whitaker? Yes. This is Richard Givens, legal counsel for William Whitaker Sr. Your grandfather has requested your presence at his private residence this morning. It's regarding the activation of your inheritance and a few critical matters he wishes to discuss personally. Can you be here by 9? I'll be there. His private residence wasn't the big estate everyone saw during holidays. That mansion, with its fountains and tennis courts, was more for show than anything else. No, Grandpa had a second place. A secluded one, nestled in the hills near Ridgeview. When I arrived, his nurse led me into a warm, sunlit room where he sat with a leather folder in his lap and 2 cups of tea on the table. You came, he said with a tired smile. Good girl. I sat, unsure of how to begin. Why now? He didn't pretend not to understand. Because I was waiting for you to stand up to them. And last night you finally did. You didn't beg.
You didn't break.
You held your ground. That's the woman I always believed you were growing into. But why this secrecy? Why lie to me all these years? He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. It wasn't my choice. Your biological mother, her name was Angela Harris. She worked in my company's legal department. She was young, brilliant, but got caught in something dangerous with your father. Not James. Your real father. I leaned forward, pulse quickening. Who was he? Grandpa looked up. James's business rival. One who died under mysterious circumstances. You were a threat to their world even before you could walk, Emily. That's why I had to hide you. To keep you safe. My blood ran cold. So, I was used as a pawn? No, he said firmly. You were protected. I paid James every year to raise you like his own. But I didn't count on his greed growing stronger than his guilt. He handed me the folder. In here, you'll find 2 things. Your birth certificate and the deed to the Ridgeview estate. It's yours now.
Fully.
The property, the assets, the trust, every dollar. You're worth more than any of them combined. And you earned it. I opened the folder with shaking hands. The papers were real, crisp, notarized. There's one more thing, Grandpa said, glancing toward the door. I had someone brought here this morning. Someone you should meet. The door opened, and in walked a woman in her late 40s, trembling slightly, eyes red from crying. I'm Angela, she said softly. I'm your mother. I stopped breathing. I wanted to keep you, she said. But they told me you died. They told me I didn't have a choice. Tears filled my eyes. For the first time since last night, I let them fall. You were alive all this time? I asked. She nodded. I was told to disappear. I only recently found out the truth. Your grandfather tracked me down. Said it was time you knew everything. My chest cracked open with 1,000 emotions, rage, sorrow, confusion, hope.
I looked to Grandpa.
You planned all this? I made promises I couldn't keep. But this was one I could. By afternoon, I stood on the balcony of the Ridgeview estate, my estate now, watching the hills stretch toward the horizon. The wind carried the scent of pine and rain. My mother stood beside me, holding my hand. For the first time in 23 years, I wasn't confused about who I was. I was Emily Harris, not James Whittaker's daughter, not their puppet. And when I walked back into that house again, I wouldn't be the disgrace. I'd be the one they all whispered about, the one they couldn't control. But I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't seek revenge with fire and fury. I'd use the truth, the wealth, the quiet power I had been given. And it would be far more terrifying. I wore white, not because I wanted to look innocent, but because it made them uncomfortable. When I walked into the Whittaker family home a week later, uninvited, unannounced, but completely expected, every head turned. My heels echoed on the polished marble, and the silence that followed was satisfying. Delicious. The same people who laughed at me, who whispered behind my back and called me a coffee girl, now fidgeted in their designer shoes. I wasn't just back. I was back with power. Is that her? Aunt Lydia whispered, clutching her pearls. She looks different, Cousin Claire muttered. Expensive. I stood in the center of the foyer, took off my sunglasses, and looked straight at my father. He was seated in his favorite armchair, the same one he once ordered me away from like a dog. His face paled. He stood slowly, eyes darting toward the door, as if he was ready to run. I smiled slightly.
Don't worry, Dad.
I'm not here to scream. That would be your style. He didn't respond, just looked exhausted, defeated. But I wasn't here for pity. I turned to the rest of them. I came to say something. Then I'll leave. I promise it won't take long. No one moved. I inhaled. You all laughed when he said I was no longer his daughter.
You cheered when he humiliated me.
I remember every glance, every smirk, every text you sent while I stood there, humiliated. I remember the way my mother stared at the floor, like I wasn't even worth defending. My voice didn't tremble, not once. But I also remember my grandfather standing up. And I remember him handing me the truth. Claire scoffed. What truth? You're still. I'm not a Whittaker, I snapped. Not by blood. And thank God for that. She froze. I'm a Harris, I said, quieter now. And the Ridgeview estate is mine. The trust fund mine. And I've filed legal motions to revoke the Whittaker family's access to any asset funded by my grandfather. The vehicles, the staff, the vacation homes, all of it. You will no longer live off the money of a man you betrayed with your silence. The silence was deafening. Emily, my father finally said, voice tight, you don't understand how complicated these things are. We can't just.
No, Dad.
You don't understand. I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm not that girl you used to control. My mother stood now too. Emily, please. You can't just erase us. I'm not erasing anyone, I said coldly. I'm simply removing myself.
Completely.
From this house, from this family, from this toxic legacy. I'm building something new, and none of you are invited. Then I turned and walked away. No one followed. 3 days later, I sat in the backyard of the Ridgeview estate with Angela, my mother, watching the sun rise over the hills. She had begun staying with me, unsure at first, but slowly opening up. I never imagined this, she said softly. This place, this peace. I didn't either, I admitted. But I also never imagined being brave enough to walk away from everything I thought defined me. You didn't just walk away, she said. You reclaimed who you were always meant to be. My phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Givens, my grandfather's lawyer. James Whittaker has filed an emergency appeal for access to the estate funds. Also, we've confirmed, someone is leaking private family records to the press. I showed Angela. They're not done trying. She nodded slowly. They never will be. Then we won't stop either. Over the next few weeks, I met with legal teams, financial advisors, and even a security consultant. I wasn't playing defense. I was building a fortress. Every donation Grandpa ever made in their names? Retracted. Every account they accessed under his authority? Frozen. Every backdoor favor they thought they could lean on?
Closed.
And still they kept trying. One night, I came home to find the gate to the estate cracked open. Nothing stolen, but someone had been there. Someone had walked through my sanctuary. Angela found me outside, pacing.
They're desperate, she said.
They're afraid. That's why they're lashing out. I want them to stop, I murmured. I want them to feel what they made me feel.
Small.
Powerless. Forgotten. She placed a hand on my shoulder. Then show them what true power looks like. Not in revenge, but in rising. I looked at her, and I realized she was right. So, I made a choice. I started a foundation, the Angela Harris Fund, dedicated to helping young women who were abandoned, rejected, or silenced by their families. I shared my story publicly, with care, dignity, and no names. It went viral within days. News outlets covered it. Messages poured in from women around the country. I wasn't just reclaiming my identity. I was giving others the courage to reclaim theirs. And then, one night, I got a call from the hospital. Miss Harris? Your father, James Whitaker, he's here. He had a breakdown. He's been asking for you. I stood in my bedroom, phone in hand, heart still. Tell him, I said quietly, that his daughter doesn't exist anymore. And I hung up, because I decide who I am now. 2 weeks passed. The Whitakers went quiet. No more legal threats. No more security incidents. It felt wrong, like silence before a storm. Then came the package, delivered by hand. No return address. Inside, an old manila envelope, cracked with age. And a single note, typed. He didn't just abandon you. He killed the man who tried to protect you. I stood frozen in the foyer, hands trembling. Angela rushed to my side, reading the note over my shoulder. Her face turned pale. It's about your father, she whispered. Your real one. Inside the envelope were documents, sealed statements, a coroner's report, even a worn photo of a man holding a baby. On the back, scribbled in faded ink. For Emily. One day, she'll understand. His name was Michael Cade, Angela said softly, pointing to the photo. He loved you. He tried to fight for custody. He never got the chance. I swallowed hard. You think James had something to do with his death? Angela didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence told me enough. The next day, I asked Mr. Gibbons to dig. He found more than I was ready for. Turns out, Michael Cade had filed a lawsuit against the Whitakers 24 years ago, alleging fraud, custody interference, even abuse. But the case vanished overnight. 2 weeks later, Cade died in a single car crash, ruled accidental. No witnesses. No police follow-up. I stared at the file for hours. This is why they wanted me erased, I whispered. Angela gripped my hand. They didn't just want to silence you. They wanted to erase the man who would have raised you with love. I drove to the hospital the next day. Not for closure. For answers. James Whitaker lay in a recovery room, hooked to monitors, pale and weak. He looked small, fragile. When he saw me, his eyes welled up. Emily, did you kill Michael Cade? I asked directly. He blinked. I didn't mean for it to happen. I just wanted him gone. Your mother wouldn't let go. I had to protect our reputation. I stepped closer. You killed a man, and raised me like a burden. I gave you everything, he snapped, voice hoarse. Clothes,
School. Food.
You think that was cheap? I would have rather grown up poor with love, I said coldly, than rich and hated. Later that night, I held the old photo of Michael Cade to my chest and cried. For the father I never knew. For the girl I used to be. For the silence I carried all these years. But I also knew one thing. I had survived the worst parts of them. And I was never going back. A week later, I stood in front of a small courthouse in Oak Ridge. Not for a trial. For a hearing. I had filed a petition to legally change my last name from Whitaker to Cade. When the judge asked me why, I simply said, Because it's time I carry the name of the man who would have carried me. She approved it in less than 5 minutes. That was the final thread. The last thing tying me to the people who treated me like trash. And I cut it clean. The Whitakers? They tried everything after that. Uncle Rob begged for reconciliation. Aunt Lydia claimed they were misled. Claire posted a public apology on her social media, but it was clearly for attention. They thought I'd cave. Instead, I invited them to a press conference. When they arrived, expecting a scolding or perhaps forgiveness, they were met with cameras and a full media crew. The backdrop? The Cade Foundation for Truth and Protection. I stepped up to the podium. I was once told I wasn't a real daughter, that I brought shame. But today, I stand here proud, not just as Emily Cade, but as a voice for every young person disowned, silenced, or betrayed by the very people meant to protect them. Behind me, a banner dropped revealing the names of donors and founders. My name, Angela's name, and Michael Cade's name, listed as honorary co-founder. The crowd clapped. Reporters leaned forward. Flashbulbs lit up the room. My father, James, stood in the back row, pale, trembling. He didn't speak. He didn't dare. He just watched everything he once controlled slip away forever. That night, I stood on the balcony of the Ridgeview estate, now officially renamed Cade Hills, watching the city glow in the distance. Angela brought out 2 cups of tea. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm more than okay," I said. "For the first time, I feel free." She smiled. "Your real father would be proud." I looked up at the stars, held that thought in my heart, and whispered quietly, "I hope so." Because I had walked through fire and came out made of something stronger.